Hello, all faculty, students, everybody at Rufa, which is the Rome University School of Fine Arts. I was there 3 years ago and I was invited to give a lecture and do a workshop, and my experience is very memorable actually because the students were fantastic, incredible energy, and the diversity of the programs really impressed me too, because you had everything from kind of media arts and digital art to illustration, to design, to fine arts, painting, etc. So it was quite, it's a very interesting school for mixed disciplines. What I will say is, so this so-called lockdown, or what's been going on for the last 3 months now, because I remember actually late January or early February, I was flying to Frankfurt, and I was at that time wearing gloves and a mask, and the coronavirus had already spread quite a bit and was really starting to affect Italy post China, and so I didn't want to take any chances, and now it's been, my God, it's been 3 months here for everybody, and I've been in my apartment in Manhattan, in Midtown Manhattan, in Hell's Kitchen now for indoors, without going out at all for about 20 days. And in fact, ended up having to close my office about a month ago. And many projects stopped. Usually at this time I have around 40 projects and or 45 projects, and right now I have 4. So not enough to keep me busy the way I used to be busy, meaning that I'm so involved and passionate about my work and productive, really. And the hard part about sitting at home is being productive. So I think it's very important to have discipline. And discipline is hard for many of us as human beings. I think inherently humans are sort of lazy, and when given the chance, we can be very lazy. I think that has a lot to do actually with capitalism, because we have this idea that the more money we have, in a way, the more, let's say, relaxed our lives would be, or that we can sit on beaches and do nothing. But I think a lot of people are not capable of just sitting around and doing nothing. Of course, there are some, and people love that. You know, in America, we use a term of beach bums. So, you know, they go down to the Caribbean and end up living there for 10 years, practically never working and just like living off the land somehow. But you know, I'm used to all my life being very productive. Since I was a very young child, I always drew, created nonstop, always felt I had to create something every day, on every level, and whether it was photography or painting or drawing or designing, or I don't know, sewing clothes. I started sewing clothes when I was 7 years old on a sewing machine. Whatever, I always felt like I had to, and I think that humankind, we're so capable of the notion of creation. I mean, we separate ourselves from all of, let's say, the animal kingdom because we create. We don't just survive anymore. We never did really. We created fire, we created the wheel, we created the microchip, we created the jet, we created satellites, we created, it goes on and on and on. So anyway, it's endless what we can create, and I noticed that the fervor and the energy around the world for creation, especially in the last 20 years with the digital age, where now if you have an idea, you can get that idea into the world, into market so easily, because you can raise capital easily online, you can disseminate your ideas online, you can show your work online. We have software and tools that are amazing, that suspend disbelief to the point where you think everything is real. You know, we can animate like we never did before in the past. We can create forms that we've never ever done historically. We can basically create a film, feature film, you know, on a digital camera, which is phenomenal too. So there's no end, I think, to human creation, and we'll probably see in the next 20 years entropic, crazy, hypertrophic amount of creation, because we're only now made the digital age, let's say, ubiquitous and omnipresent for all of us. So we all have these new tools, and we can do so much. So yes, you probably think yes, I'm lying in bed. Anyway, so discipline is very important, and And so what I do when I wake up in the morning after having a very small but healthy breakfast and a very good, double espresso or double espresso latte, what I do is I try to write down just, let's say, 4 things every day that I want to pursue. Obviously, one of them is to work on one of my projects. So right now I'm working, for example, on a hospital in Israel, and I'm working on a couple of hotels, and but that's it really. Oh, and a water bottle in Korea, a couple of little projects. But it's not enough. So what I do is every day I say, okay, I'm going to work on some project, some dream project, some imaginary project, something that I would love to do or see manifested or realized in the world, and I sketch it out. So I probably spend maybe 2 hours doing that. Then I spend a good hour every day exercising because I'm obsessed with staying in shape and health in general. So a minimum of an hour. Today I did, I don't know, almost 2 hours of exercise. Then I'll probably focus on doing something like cooking something, a new recipe, a pie, a cake, something I've never done before, because I'm also very concerned about eating very healthy food. And then let's see what else goes on in my day. Then I probably spend a couple of hours in the evening watching a film. Now I love film, and I've watched, I know the history of film quite well, and so I always try to find more art house films or intellectual films or independent films, more obscure things that really can touch our human psyche and our human emotion and really affect us. So I also in that day maybe spend in my day at home, in my stay home, I spend maybe a half an hour reading. I don't read a lot anymore. I prefer to write, or I end up writing for half an hour. So my day is sort of spread out that way. And I have a small deck, a summer deck, but in New York with a nice view, but it's been pretty cold, so not really the time yet to go out there and really enjoy it. Now, with you all in Italy, obviously it's, especially in the northern part of Italy, it's been a really difficult situation, and we have that now in Manhattan. I think New York is in a worse state globally right now than anywhere in the world with the coronavirus. But I think that we will supersede it, will come out as being better as human beings, because when we come out of it, I think that we will also be maybe a little bit more sensitive to many things. I think number one, hygiene. We'll be much more sensitive to hygiene. I think that our habits might change a little bit in the sense of, touching too many surfaces or touching our faces or, coughing or sneezing in front of someone or even just physical contact. That'll probably change somewhat. I think the second thing that's going to change actually is to realize that this crazy non-stop capitalist world of consumption and production is almost too much. Now, as an industrial designer, I've designed hundreds of products, and I always love this notion of mass production, but I think that I always also believe that less is better too, though. So with that, maybe we will move into a new decade of a reduction, a reductiveness of everyday life. We'll have less around us, but better. And things that less around us, but things that bring us real, true meaning to our lives instead of just having objects, things for the sake of it. So I think we are going to dematerialize even more. I think the second thing that's going to come out of this, a lot of it, is a new wave of contemporaneity, where I think we're going to realize that just the past is the past, and what took place in the last couple of centuries is irrelevant really to the day and age in which we live. And that comes, I guess, with the sense of reductiveness also. I think that I just read a very long article of Giorgio Armani's discussion about the coronavirus, and I'm empathetic to his words, although there's a bit of hypocrisy there too, because this fashion machine that was created, he was part of that machine. He's partly responsible for generating 7 or 8 collections a year, and this kind of fast fashion that's taken place has to slow down. So I think we should start, producing things that if I buy an object, a jacket, that jacket is with me for 5 years, and it's can be interesting, it can be very high tech, it can be anything, but it needs to have some longevity. And I think the world of fast fashion has to slow down because it's destroying the earth. But I think also just since the Industrial Revolution, we've been kind of destroying the earth anyway with toxicities and created a fairly dangerous place. And now what's the end result? A huge hole in the ozone, global warming, plastic toxicities everywhere around us, destroying the oceans, etc., landfill, too much waste, too much consumption. So I think as creative people, we want to make beauty and beautify the world, but we have to be responsible too. And then I'll add to even that too, just as a designer. I went through this kind of crazy period of the 80s, the semantic 80s, of doing design for the sake of design, doing design that was really for designers, doing design that maybe didn't function very well, but looked interesting, or was animated, or very expressive, or emotional, or semantic. But the end result of that was that we designed a lot of things in this world that don't work. So I think the next thing we move to is this next decade, really, or moving into this next decade, is to only put things into the world that really add human experiences, that elevate our lives, that make our lives better. And if something doesn't, it doesn't need to exist. So we should produce less, again, but things that really are, let's say, responsible, experiential, emotional, beautiful, and most importantly, functional. And if design doesn't function, it's not design. So what we really need to go back a little bit in an old school premise of problem solving, that we need to do things that are functional. Now, even like the annotation of form follows function, but now function is a little bit different because function is emotional and it's experiential and it's sensorial. But that's function too. So function at that time when it was originally talked about was really just mechanical. But today everything should function on every level, and we should design a new world that way. That everything that around us is smart and inspiring. And when I say responsible, it means also that it's not destroying this earth. It's produced in a sustainable way, or it's a material that's recyclable, or it's how can I say that it's it's maybe biodegradable, etc. So that's the new world that we got to create. When I look at packaging, food packaging, all the stuff on the market, everything in the world, every one of these things actually could have a very small impact on the earth if it's clever and smart, of the right materials, the right use, the right type of disposability, etc. Buildings too, architecture. Every building around us could be beautiful. We could have solar panel glass today, clear glass that can create energy for us with new technologies. We can have buildings that are made of the simplest, most lightweight alloys and just glazing. And we don't need all this excessive materials. We don't need bricks and stone. And I was in Shanghai on the 98th floor of a hotel, and I realized the hallways were so clad with so much heavy marble and stone. For what? For what? This is not design. This is just bad styling that's trying to make us believe, like a fog and mirrors, that this is luxury. It's not luxury. Luxury today is free time. Luxury is simplicity. Luxury is plug and play. Luxury is having a free time in your life. This is luxury. Luxury is not these just heavy material for the sake of material. And these are the sort of things that we've done with design that were mistakes. Today we have to now just make a very light world. I think actually moving forward in the next decade, it's going to be the epoch of transparency. Transparency means dematerialization of what we use. Transparency in the sense that if you do something, a good product or something great, that it has to be very honest. Transparency in the sense that it's the price you pay for something is really what you should be paying for it, not an inflated price because of a brand name or some myth that comes along with it. That's a kind of honesty and a transparency. Transparency in the sense of architecture, that we don't need all strange, odd facades. We need a sense of, unless the odd facade is really bringing something to the inner experience, so the inner and the outer are related, that the building has this kind of relationship of when I go inside the building, it feels like what I saw on the outside of the building. That's transparency too. Transparency is even just, you could argue as a metaphor, it's running around with your fingerprint and not having to have any material things to travel the world, to cross from one border to another, to go to the doctor's office, to etc., to for your passport, all that, just boom, buy things. And that's the way the world is moving, right? So we're doing without money. I mean, it's interesting coincidence that the corona comes along and, affects and touches now something like, 3-4 million people in the world that have it, probably a lot more actually. And the number of people that will die from it. And my heart goes out to all those people, by the way, families, everything. And it's interesting how that comes along at the same time when we need this new, honest, transparent, beautiful, seamless, functional, smart, poetic world. So all you students at Rufa, do this. Every day, spend 1 hour. Don't spend your whole day. Figure out what you want to do across your day. And I would say this for everybody. Just spend an hour focusing on doing a creative act, something very creative. Even it could be writing a music, writing a play, script, creative something, painting a painting, designing a project, whatever it is, silk screening a t-shirt, doing some photography. But 1 hour a day, always. I've never ever stopped drawing since I was 2.5 years old. I don't think a day has gone by, except a few times when I was probably out cold for 24 hours on an operating table in a hospital. Other than that, I don't think a day's gone by where I haven't drawn for at least 30 minutes, 40 minutes, maybe an hour. So, to be is to create. And we have to continue to do that to make the world a better place and to embrace humanity. Okay, I love you all. Global love from New York.